Strategic autonomy is no longer just a goal, it is a funded, policy-backed reality. And by prioritizing domestic spend, the government is insulating national security from global supply chain shocks.
Unless you control the design, you cannot export.
We decided that we were not going to buy technology.
In India, we have companies who are into ammunition. They themselves would be having a market cap of $15 billion.
I don't see any reason why there shouldn't be an Indian company, with a defense market cap of at least 15 to 20 billion in the next 5-7 years.
Gulf countries are going to emerge more and more importantly for us as a potential market.
We see India as transforming from the world's largest importer or the second largest importer as per last data to becoming a significant exporter and a global manufacturing node. By aligning massive capital expenditure with aggressive indigenization and by opening the doors to private innovation, India is securing its borders while building a powerhouse industrial base.
A drone is maybe costing a $10,000 or $20,000 drone, but a counter to a drone would be costing maybe $1 million.
You see the slide up over here. 10 साल पहले like 2015 में 1.6 trillion dollars was the global defense spend, and now in closer to 2026 it's about 2.9 trillion dollars. So and आप अगर एक 5-6 साल का व्यू ले तो $3.5 trillion है. So I think with the changing geopolitics, sir, आपका क्या व्यू है how the last 5 years of the defense industry has been and how the next 5 years of the defense industry can be?
The European increase is dramatic, from 3% of GDP to 5% of GDP. And as you said, a significant increase in the US military budget, almost to $1.2 trillion. And this has coincided with our own expansion and indigenization program for the defense industry, which I think really took root in 2014. But it got accelerated after 2020. It got accelerated after the 2022 Ukraine. And I have absolutely no doubt it will further accelerate because of the Iran war. These are early days. If we can get our act together, start small, but start sure-footed, then we can actually make a big difference. Because remember, especially for Europe, they have neither the Russian option open for them nor the Chinese option. India is the only option which provides them scale and cost advantage. We are really well placed today, and we are even more well placed because we are simultaneously reforming our own defense industry and trying to maximize competitiveness.
As all of you are aware, the nature of warfare is changing. If you see the recent conflicts, it is clearly evident that the traditional concepts of boots on the ground are being replaced in many cases by unmanned systems, by shortwaves in tactical battlefields, by drones in the air and bits on the wire. In the same way, India's defense strategy in 2026 acknowledges that future conflicts will be multi-domain, asymmetric, and data-centric. The formal adoption of the MDO doctrine in 2025 has integrated the three services to target the enemy in all the domains, including cognitive, cyber, and space domains. The use of swarm and unmanned systems has also been prioritized towards AI-driven swarms, as well as advanced UAVs, which provide a cost-effective alternative and augmentation to traditional manned platforms. In the field of cognitive warfare, we are again prioritizing this, and 2026 has been declared the year of networking and data centricity, focusing on AI-based threat detection, supporting decision-making and analysis of ever-increasing and evolving battlefield data. And there is a focus on hypersonic and directed energy weapons, which are being fast-tracked given the recent developments in this technology domain.
We want to get your guidance that the context of this is the changing warfare. And I think the Ukraine-Russia war, the India-Pakistan war, the present war between Iran, Israel, America. I think what are the key insights and how that is going as inputs to change the acquisition policy also?
I think what the current wars, current war scenarios, what they are showing is that we have to move away from the larger systems towards smaller and systems which are self-governing or autonomous in some way. Because what we see is that, like for example, Russia and Ukraine, the low-cost drones which Ukraine has perfected, they make in thousands in a week, and they have been able to stop Russia. A drone is maybe costing a $10,000 or $20,000 drone, but a counter to a drone would be costing maybe $1 million. You have to spend much more in terms of countering a drone or countering a loitering munition compared to what is there. So I think that is what this has shown. Now, anecdotally, what is being said is that even the US aircraft carriers, they have not been able to clear the Strait of Hormuz. So this shows that we have to change our systems, move towards more localized, use AI, how to respond fast. I think that is, and then again the sort of Iron Dome, which we in India call the Bhargavastra, that how to counter swarms of drones which are low cost, but then how do you counter them within the short window which is available.
In 2019, you were pivotal for bringing out defense acquisition procedures. Now you are coming up with defense acquisition procedures 26.
The biggest change which happened in 2016 was that the category which was the highest category, that was the Buy Indian IDDM, that is Indigenous Design, Development and Manufacture. And that was available only to Indian companies which are owned and controlled by Indians, not even subsidiaries of foreign companies in India. So that became the go-to sort of category, and almost all the procurements which happen within India are now happening in that category. This time what we are progressing is that we will allow even single vendors. This time we are going to change that. For the smaller purchases and for the MSMEs and the smaller this thing, and if something is ready, we take it and operate it in the field for a year and see if there are any problems, and if it is useful to the services, then we go ahead and procure it with a larger order. So it becomes a sort of an in-service trial. So there we are introducing something which are critical technologies, a category called critical technologies. Till now we are there was a limit of 250 crore up to which the government would fund. We are proposing that we will remove all limits. We will give up to 70% without limits. For example, engines is one area where I think India is critically lacking. So at least we have to make a start somewhere.
Collaboration between a design partner, private sector manufacturing, public sector OEM, I think can produce a virtuous cycle which will not only grow the market but will dramatically increase the size and speed at which we are able to deliver.
Just want to supplement what Amit has said, and I think he's actually touched the most important point in the whole cycle, which is design. And I can tell you, based on my experience in Russia when I was there, you know, the most important man in any plant was the chief designer. He was the most respected, maybe the most well paid, but money was not the important thing. The important thing was the social status and the respect that he was given. And I don't know whether our private sector in India today is mature enough to give similar respect to the question of design and the designer. So I would only urge that there are these intangibles which will not be written in any policy, in any DAP, in any procurement policy, but which are at the root of success if you want to become a defense manufacturing nation of global standard.
Baba Kalyani, I must say that 2008 he started the ATAX and he got his first order in 2025. A 16 or 17 years journey. It is a journey of perseverance, a journey of deep pockets and not losing faith and patience, which not many would be able to do it. So it is a long haul, it takes time, takes efforts, but probably it is better to start with, not with the larger systems for all the companies. Probably it is better to start with components, subcomponents, assemblies, and that is what we are exporting also, and ammunition.
When we developed the Bharat 52 gun, which was before ATAX, in 2008 or 2010, I think 2010, we could not get approvals to fire this gun in India. And the reason was that there was no provision to allow a private sector company to use a Indian firing range. There just wasn't, because the rules that were there were from the British era. Now, at that time, my father got this gun fired in the US. We got all the results, and then he was able to talk to Mr. Parikar and show him. And that was one big step where I think the fact that Mr. Parikar himself was an engineer from IIT, he understood how technology works and how you have to, in the development of an advanced product like this, you need to do a lot of testing and trials. So he immediately allowed those facilities to be open to private sector on a pari passu basis with all the OFB companies or the forces. That was one. A lot of people from the forces and from the government walked by and made comments that, how can an Indian company, private sector company, which has never made a gun, make a gun? There are those who get disappointed by such things, and there are those who get fueled by such things. We fall in the second category. So, karke dikhana hai is the attitude within our company, and the more people doubt you, the more you get, let's say, charged to do something and make it happen. We decided that we were not going to buy technology, and that we would, in these core areas where nobody has developed new products for 30, 40 years, that we would develop brand new products using state-of-the-art technology. It would have been very easy to go and get a license from someone and make it. But I think that the know-how and the know-why is as important, if not more. The ATAX development was a collaborative relationship between ourselves, DRDO, and of course our other manufacturing partner, which is Tata Defense. We had a lot of ideas about how we wanted this gun to be designed, but they had the absolute specifications in terms of what goals they wanted to achieve. Like, they wanted a gun that could fire more than 40 kilometers, because they wanted it to be also maneuverable enough that it can self-drive at a certain speed up to a certain distance. But it was perceived to be too heavy. So then we were able to reduce the weight, we were able to make it more mobile, we were able to make it more maneuverable, we were able to make it higher range even than what was originally planned, because of the metallurgical capability, manufacturing capability that we had. So it was started like, we were all starting from, say, 70, and when we collaborated together, we took it up to maybe 90. So that's the way the partnership went, because we kept pushing each other to do more. I don't think an Indian company or a company from any other space is going to do exactly what they do. So I think the new companies are going to make different products. I think this whole Iran war and the Ukraine war has taught us is that you're fighting an asymmetric battle. You don't need the most expensive thing, you need something that is effective to do what you need to do to overwhelm the other side's defenses or offenses. So I don't see any reason why there shouldn't be an Indian company, with a defense market cap of, in the private sector I'm saying, at least 15 to 20 billion in the next 5-7 years. I definitely think that that's possible. Europe has a supply chain crisis. The OEMs in Europe want to make things, but if you want to buy something from them, you have to wait 15 years to get delivery today. And that is because they don't have a manufacturing value chain there. Germany used to not manufacture defense. And the big opportunity for Indian companies is to get into their supply chain first. Because you're not going to sell defense products, but you can supply to the companies that make defense equipment. I think that is a good starting point.
One approach, and I think, of strategic autonomy is product nation. And, one cycle of defense was contract manufacturing or a cost plus manufacturing. Second was, I think, doing a certain amount of design, R&D spend, and driving that approach of product. And I think with technologies now you have next cycle of companies which would be, Andurils of the world. So, and particularly for a smaller business, will not be having like historical cash flows backing them. Like, which geographies do you think, and with the example of BrahMos, which has been a successful example, which geographies should we think of going and partnering?
So Armenia, in fact, in the last few years has been a good example. But I would say also the Middle East or West Asia, Brahmos, we sold it to the Philippines. So Southeast Asia is an attractive market. There are these geographies which are available to us. The Gulf, by the way, the Gulf countries are going to emerge more and more importantly for us as a potential market. If we can come into the supply chain and start with first small steps and build the trust and the confidence, then we can actually scale up and it will continue to grow.
Revenue will go up only if there is export, because if you are focused in India, our budget is about 2,20,000 crore, which is just about $25 billion. So you can't, while selling in India, you can't achieve a revenue of $25 billion. Unless you export, and for that you have to have indigenous design. You have to, unless you control the design, you cannot export. For example, when we talk of BrahMos also, it is controlled by Russia. We can't export without Russia saying yes, that you can export it, and to which country. So unless you control the design, for example, Pinaka, that is one of the successes. ATACs, which now Bharat Forge has made, that because it is a DRDO design, you can export. The frigates which we are making, or the smaller boats, because again they are our indigenous design, that we can export. Yes. In India, we have companies who are into ammunition. For example, solar industries, I think that they themselves would be having a market cap of $15 billion. Because they are into export, they are the largest manufacturers of RDX and HMX in the world. I asked them what is the impact of 50% tariff on you. They said there is nothing, no impact, because they require our product. But as long as the design is foreign, we cannot export.
One part of the defense industry in India, which actually makes in India and designs in India, is the Navy. Because we have a Naval Design Board or Naval Design Bureau. They actually design systems, even complex systems like submarines, nuclear submarines, aircraft carriers. And you are seeing now they're launching one new frigate every 3 weeks. That's unbelievable. And these are world-class stealth frigates. Okay? The reason they're able to do this is because for the last 40 odd years, they have had a Naval Design Bureau. Now we have something called ADA. Okay? ADA is the domain expert for design and approval of aircraft in India. So now with AMCA and with Prachand and LCA and the transport aircraft for the future and all, you will see an emergence of the design engineering capability of the platform at least. May not be the jet engines, but at least the platform. And that is what is going to move us forward. And that collaboration between a design partner, private sector manufacturing, public sector OEM, I think can produce a virtuous cycle which will not only grow the market but will dramatically increase the size and speed at which we are able to deliver.
India has entered 2026 with a decisive shift in its strategic posture, moving from a reactive defense model to one of proactive deterrence and capability development. In a sense, India is no longer just buying defense, it is investing in a self-reliant security architecture. And by prioritizing domestic spend, the government is insulating national security from global supply chain shocks. We see India as transforming from the world's largest importer or the second largest importer as per last data to becoming a significant exporter and a global manufacturing node. India's defense story in 2026 is one of calculated and designed transformation. By aligning massive capital expenditure with aggressive indigenization and by opening the doors to private innovation, not just the private sector but also startups, India is securing its borders while building a powerhouse industrial base. Strategic autonomy is no longer just a goal, it is a funded, policy-backed reality.